I've been in business for 10 years, and in that time at selfpublishing.com, we've done over $70 million in revenue and 7 figures in profit yearly. But I didn't get here by doing more. I got here by quitting a bunch of things that were holding me back. So here are the 7 things that every entrepreneur can do to increase their yearly income to 7 figures in profit. Number 1, I quit doing everything that wasn't driving revenue. There's only 2 things that you should be focused on in your business. Number 1 is getting new customers. Number 2 is making customers happier. And until you have customers, you don't have anyone to make happier, right? So many people in the early days, they get lost in the logos, the font, I need a website, I need pictures of myself. I need all this stupid stuff that doesn't matter and it doesn't move the needle. And there's nothing like being on the verge of bankruptcy or on the verge of being broke like I was when I started, that will just intensely focus you on getting customers. This focus alone can get you to 6 figures. Number 2, I quit doing tasks for less than $400 an hour. There's an exercise that you can do is if you take your yearly earnings and divide it by 2,080, that will give you your hourly rate. All right, so this is how much that you technically earn per hour. Now the next step, and this is the most important step, is once you get that number, you need to pay someone to do the stuff that can be done for less than that amount. Now, if you look at what does it actually look like to make $1 million a year, well, it's about $400 an hour. So that means in order to raise your hourly rate, what do you first need to do, right? I'll talk about this later in the video. You need to stop doing the stuff that can be done for less than that hourly rate. Now, this feels weird. You got to do it. So you need to stop doing, and I'm dead serious about this, stop doing everything that you could pay someone $400 or less per hour to do if you want to get to that $1 million rate, right? Or at a minimum threshold, stop doing everything that you could pay someone to do what your hourly rate is or less. Now, if you're not sure where to start, one of the best places is in the stuff that you do daily around the house. Now, I've got a whole other video on this. You can watch that. It's on why you should hire a personal assistant, how to hire a personal assistant. And I've got a friend that says, if you don't have an assistant, you are the assistant. And so that alone will unlock at least 5 to 10 hours a week. So I'm talking cooking, I'm talking cleaning, maybe it's meal prep, maybe if it's going to the grocery store, maybe it's your laundry. Like there's all of these things that you can instantly claim back 5, 10, 15 hours a week on. Number 3, I quit managing my own email and my own calendar. All right, so speaking of hiring an assistant, this is one of the first and best places to start, especially once you've got an assistant. I have not checked email in years. The only time I even go into my inbox is with a very specific intent, because contrary to popular belief, email is other people's priorities. I'll say that again. Email is other people's priorities. Now, obviously, if you're doing sales in your business, yeah, you're going to have to filter and communicate via email, text, etc. But what most people end up doing is if you were to have a pie chart of the time that you spend on your email, 90% of it is not revenue driving, maybe even more than that. And then your calendar. All right, so I live and die by my calendar, and your calendar needs to be managed by someone else because there's a couple benefits there. One, if someone else is managing your calendar, well, they're going to keep you from doing the things that are not moving the needle. So right away, you're going to gain back 5, 10 hours a week, maybe even more than that. But also, it gets you out of that, we've all been there, that back and forth endless communication to try to find a time when you can do something, when they can do something, and all that stuff. So quit managing your email and your calendar. Number 4, I quit taking lunch and coffee meetings. All right, and this is another counterintuitive one and something that I think is probably unpopular for most people, but I just don't do these. All right, it's amazing how many people will fill their calendar with, hey, I got coffee with so-and-so, I got lunch with so-and-so, and then when are you actually getting work done? Right, you got to drive growth in your business. See point number 1. Right, you got to drive growth, and a lot of times these coffee meetings, these lunch meetings, they're not moving the needle. Right? And so they're not truly driving growth in your business. So what I do instead is a couple things. Number 1, I'll have them meet with people on my team. Okay, so a lot of times, especially as you build a team, I tell people, I am not the person you want to talk to. I know everybody thinks that I'm the person that they want to talk to. I'm not the person to talk to for just about anything, right? Because I've got a really competent and capable team that they should talk to instead. And I'm going to talk about this in point 7, right? And so first thing, I'll deflect to other people on the team. Second thing, I'll do a Zoom or a call instead. So this just saves a bunch of time because most of what could be covered in a lunch or coffee, etc., can be covered from a Zoom or a call. And then the best thing is I regain, probably an hour of time traveling to and from that thing, right? So that's the second thing. Third thing, I'll have them come to me. Okay, so maybe this is, if I am making a rare exception this is someone really high leverage, well then I'll have a place nearby that we can grab a quick coffee, that we can grab a lunch, etc. And now I'm going to avoid prime time. I've talked about that in other videos. And then number 4, and this actually gives you a ton of leverage, is I'll go from one-to-one to one-to-many. All right, now there's a lot of ways that I do this in my business. A book is a big one of those ways. In this instance, I'm planning dinners or masterminds, okay? So I'll do these founders dinners or entrepreneur dinners or whatever, and I'll host and I'll have 8 people, 10 people. And that was a big thing that I did, especially early on, to add value and build relationships. Number 5, I quit hanging out with energy vampires. So I had a mentor one time, he said there's 4 types of people: adders, there's subtractors, there's dividers, and there's multipliers. Adders, they add to your life. Maybe you feel energized when you're around them. They encourage you, they support you, all that stuff. Multipliers, that's even taking it to the next level. So all those things, but then they're also multiplying. So maybe they're introducing you to people who can help you. They're bringing you opportunities. They are multiplying your success. These are the people that you want to hang out with. There's a great book called Multipliers, all about this and how to foster this in your workplace or in your business. Well, most people, they're wasting their time and they're spending all their time with subtractors and dividers. So subtractors, these are people who subtract from you, obviously, but maybe you notice that when you hang out with them, your energy is just a little bit lower. Maybe they're always complaining. They're always watching the news. They're obsessed with negativity and it's just draining. Now, what about dividers? These are a little bit more rare, but these are people who go out of their way to undercut you. They're taking from you. These are takers, right? But then they're also kind of undercutting your success. Maybe they're dogging you behind your back. Maybe they're saying, hey, yeah, Chandler, who's he? He doesn't know what he's doing to other people, right? You want to cut those people off as quickly as possible, and you want to diminish your time with those energy vampires or with those subtractors. Number 6, I quit doing one-on-one fulfillment. If you're running a business, and especially if you're getting traction, you probably have or are getting sucked into the day-to-day fulfillment, right? And then maybe you relate to this. There's this yo-yo that happens, right? Where you're driving growth, you're making sales, and then whoop, now you got to do all this fulfillment, right? And then when you're doing all the fulfillment, you're not driving growth. And then you wake up one day and you say, oh crap, I don't have any business. And then you go back to driving growth, right? And you kind of yo-yo back and forth between driving growth. Now I'm stuck in fulfillment. Driving growth. Now I'm stuck in fulfillment. Well, the best way to end that trap is to get out of the one-on-one fulfillment. So I'll show you what that looked like for me. So when I first started my business, I was doing all of the one-on-one coaching. Right? And if you're the person, if you're the brand, you may have been tempted to say the same thing that I did, which is, hey, I'm just so special. People want it from me. There's no way that anyone would be willing to be coached by someone else. Or there's no way that I can make the process so good that someone else can coach this. Are you guilty of that? It's like, I'm this special unicorn. Oh, Chandler, this doesn't apply to me, right? Wrong. Okay, you've got to get out of the one-on-one fulfillment. So what I did is I hired a team of coaches and then I propped them up and I built a process. So there was a process that they could follow, and then I hired coaches and I had them start to do the fulfillment. So then immediately I got out of the one-to-one, so I didn't have any fulfillment. And so now I can focus on driving growth. Now, I do want to give kind of a caution and word of advice. So this may be a little asterisk on this advice that I just gave, is I kept one group coaching call, right? So that's from one-to-one to one-to-many. Remember that? All right. So I kept one of those. And that was just my way to keep my fingers on the pulse of what's happening with my customers, because you don't want to just totally remove yourself, because then you're just making decisions in a vacuum and you're not actually connected to your customer. But that's the one piece that I kept. Everything else was done by my team. All right, so once you go from that one-on-one fulfillment to one-to-many and get out of the fulfillment, that gives you more time to drive growth. And then if you write a book about it, which is something that we obviously talk a lot about at selfpublishing.com, well, then that brings you even more leverage, right? Because now all of a sudden you've got your frameworks, you've got your concepts that can be coached or fulfilled on by someone else. Number 7, I quit trying to do everything myself. Now, you know the feeling. As entrepreneurs, we feel like you got to do everything. And yes, in the beginning you do. And before you have the first employee, you do, right? You are the chief everything officer. You're doing everything, right? But then what happens is as you start to grow, you can afford to pay people to do the things like we talked about earlier that are below the line, right? They're below your hourly rate. And so there's really 2 things you need to do to get out of the everything trap. You need good people and you need good process. Okay, so good people, that means building a team. That means hiring a team, right? So check out my video on how to hire a great team. I go in depth on how to do that, but you got to have great people. All right. You got to have great people because then you can trust them to do the things that are going to actually scale the business. Now, what happens if you hire great people though, and they don't have good training or they don't have good process? Well, then you go back to being the chief everything officer, and that's the chief every question officer, because they're going to come to you with hundreds of questions. So what do you need to do to get out of that trap is you need to create great process. This gives you leverage, again, to go from one-to-one to one-to-many. So what I did in my business is I wrote a book on the process of what we're doing, and then I created videos on the process of what we're doing, right? And here's the best thing is that I can just give that book to every new client or customer, and I can give that book to every new employee. This is now the training mechanism for them. Right? And so it's kind of the ultimate cheat code, yes, to grow your business and, to drive revenue growth and all that stuff, but it's also the cheat code to train your team. So you need people and you need process, and that is how you stop doing everything. Now, you may have noticed this is the first video that I've done in a long time, so this is kind of a reintroduction. This is a welcome back. And so I've got 2 questions as we end this video. The first one is, what resonated with you most from this video? So which of these 7 things resonated the most, or which of these 7 things do you most need to implement in your life and in your business? All right. And then secondly, what's a topic that you want me to cover in a future video? Right? So you may have seen my story, growingselfpublishing.com, or you may have been part of the journey, or you may just be new here and you're like, hey, this is what I want to learn. Comment below and let me know. We're going to be doing a bunch more content around these topics of what it truly takes to go from nothing to something, to scale an 8-figure business, to do it successfully, to bring leverage to your business using books. So what do you want to hear?